Inshallah, we'll start with Isha, and then we'll pray 2 rak'ahs, and then 2 Tarawe'eh, and then there will be a short dars, short uh, mini lecture that's a sunnah between the first four and the second four. And then after that we pray 2 rak'ahs, another 2, so that will make 8. And then we will pray 2 shaf and 1 witr. And the last witr rak'ah, it's a single rak'ah, but we recite in it Allahu Ahad and Qul A'udhu bi Rabbil Nas and Qul A'udhu bi Rabbil Falaq. And then after that, inshallah, we'll start the dhikr. And I'll tell you more about the dhikr after we finish Isha and Taraweeh. Inshallah, today is 21st of Ramadan, so we've entered the last 10 days, and only Allah knows if tonight is the night of Qadr. Whether it is or not, the last 10 days of Ramadan are mentioned in the Quran as days of great blessings and enormous barakah. And we know that the heavens and the earth are never as close to one another as the last 10 days of Ramadan. It is a time, count your life with the number of Ramadans that Allah gives to you. Each Ramadan that passes is a deduction of 1. And then you have left whatever number Allah has decreed in your lifetime. Whatever it is. But even if you imagine that Allah has written in your life 100 Ramadans, even if it's 100 Ramadans, each Ramadan that passes is an opportunity. And so remember, Dhikrullah, the remembrance of Allah, should always be in the last 10 days of Ramadan a preoccupation, a constant preoccupation. But the fact that you are in Taraweeh and inshallah will do the dhikr, it means that inshallah that you're already aware of this. I want to make this short nasiha as the sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ holds, to dedicate this nasiha to what I see as a significant, a very significant and grave event in our lifetime, and that is the threat that exists to the life of 3 very important scholars. I talked about them in Khutbat al-Jum'ah, but in the rest of your Taraweeh prayers and in the dhikr, remember them. Ask Allah to give them patience and strength, and to give patience and strength to their family. The 3 scholars that I'm talking about are Salman al-Auda, Awad al-Qarni, and al-Umari. These represented, for whatever it's worth, the moderate side of Salafi Wahhabi Islam. I have been watching a lot of videos by Salman al-Auda and Awad al-Qarni, and not A'id is Salat. Awad al-Qarni, his brother-in-law, and al-Umari, and consistently they represented, again, whether you agree with them or not, it doesn't matter. What they represented was a side of Islam that did not sell out the essential and existential causes of the Muslim Ummah. They insisted on Saudi standing by the Palestinians. They insisted on the relationship between Muslims and Quds and Masjid al-Aqsa. They thought that the war in Yemen was an unjust war and that the genocide of Muslims, inflicting genocide upon other Muslims, is unconscionable and unthinkable. They did not want a war between the Sunnah and Shia and thought that that would be disastrous and a huge calamity. They thought that the first issue that the Ummah confronted is the existential threat that Israel posed, especially right-wing Israelis posed, to liberty and freedom in the Muslim world. The fact that the neocons and right-wing Israelis, the Christian right, that firmly believe that Muslims should never have the right of self-determination. And either they spoke openly about this, or they spoke through sort of implications but the greatest, the biggest threat that is posed to Muslims in our day and age is that after the Arab Spring, nations like Saudi and the Emirates and Egypt unified to demand what Orientalists have been calling for ages quietist Islam. An Islam that is odorless, tasteless, spineless, an Islam without ethics, without morality, without notions of justice, without notions of freedom, without even notions of fundamental human dignity. An Islam that basically says, as long as you do your ibadah, as long as you pray and you fast, and pay zakah where the government allows you to pay zakah, not even to your choice of recipient, then that's good enough. And Awad al-Qarni and Salman Saouda and al-Umari's sin is that they saw that as grave and as a grave altering of the very nature of the Islamic faith, which started out as a theology of national liberation. I mean, the very first principle of Islam, when the followers of the Prophet ﷺ went to Abyssinia and the emperor of Abyssinia told them, "What is your religion about?" And they said, "Our religion transforms us from worshipping other human beings to worshipping God alone. تنقلنا من عبادة العباد لعبادة الله." That we no longer submit to another human being. The entire revolution against Quraysh that Muhammad ﷺ led was a revolution against a corrupt, iniquitous aristocracy. And the very first message was a message that said whether you are rich or poor, you are equal. Whether you are Persian or Arab, you are equal. Whether you are black or white, you are equal. And the only distinction is the distinction of whether you live within a paradigm of belief or you live within a paradigm of non-belief, which for that time was completely revolutionary, and it made everything stand on its head. For people that had lived for centuries within paradigms of elitism and supremacy and a notion of inherent superiority of a caste over another, that was completely a revolutionary message. Without that revolutionary message, Islam ceases to be Islam. There is no more Islam. Islam then just becomes like any feel-good, self-serving theology of egoism, a theology that basically caters to the individual ego so that the individual ego can consume without refrain and can indulge without limits. That's not Islam. And so in your prayer and in your dhikr, there have been so many Muslims, and if I could sit here and speak to you for hours about how many Muslims have been put to death in the past 5 years alone. But Allahu A'lam, but I feel it in my bones. If scholars of that magnitude are put to death, if Salman al-Auda and Awad al-Qarni and al-Amari are executed, we would earn Allah's wrath for I don't know how many decades to come. I feel it in my bones. All blessings will abandon that entire region. And that's not something that I want to see happen. And we have already angered God enough. We have already shed enough blood. We have already the amount of, and one last thing. If there is anything that will save the lives of these scholars, sadly, it won't be the demonstrations being held in Saudi or in Egypt or in Jordan, or it will be and only be the reaction of the West, because that's all that Saudi Arabia cares about. If with a single phone call, if Trump calls up MBS and tells them, you know, there's going to be too much backlash, that's the world we live in. So you live in a privileged situation. I had a nightmare last night where I dreamt that I was being arrested and that I was watching my sons, and I knew that my sons were going to be executed. And when Grace woke me up, I realized that but for Allah's blessings, any of us could have been in their shoes. All of us are the sons and daughters of immigrants. For a simple change of fate, a very slight change of fate, and we could have all been easily the ones who are facing the death sentence. So pray for them, and if you are able to do anything, such as contact a congressman, work with a human rights organization, demonstrate in front of the Saudi embassy or Saudi consulate, that's our obligation, that's our duty. Because it is our obligation to save lives, especially when those lives are honest, brave Muslim scholars. Okay. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Since this is our first dhikr session, so I'm going to just mention a few things, and inshallah, if Allah wills, and we have other dhikr sessions, it will be helpful. So, dhikr, always remember that the prayers that we do, the salah that Allah obligated us to do, is simply like the nerve system that connects us to the divine. It's the basic connector that makes possibility of development, that makes it possible for us to develop beyond our basic, um, most rudimentary and even primitive connection to the divine. The real development beyond the obligatory prayer, as I said, the prayer is like the basic intact nervous system. It's just there. It just says that you have potential. Without the basic prayers, the basic connecting, basic system that connects you to divine, it leaves a gaping hole. The true development takes in the context of dhikr. So, when for instance Allah says, يَا أَيُّهَا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا اذكروا الله ذكرا كثيرا وسبحوه بكرة وأصيلا, remember Allah consistently, and sabbihuh, which is tasbih, which when you say subhanallah, bukratan wa asila, in your constant affairs. The Prophet ﷺ, in a famous hadith, says to his companions, shall I tell you something more powerful and more valuable than gold and money, and more important than waging armed jihad and warfare, and more important than life itself? And that's dhikrullah, the dhikr of Allah. Dhikr can come in many different forms, and over the Islamic over Islamic history, there are those who became aqtab. Aqtab basically means people who, through dhikr, developed a knowledge of the divine, of the supernal, that far exceeded what other human beings are able to achieve. So much so that they became a spiritual house in and of themselves. And these various individuals throughout Islamic history developed their own system of dhikr, because dhikr is, although you start out in your life with a basic dhikr that you do collectively, and I'm going to tell you why there's a power in collectivity in a second. But as you developed, and as you go beyond the fundamentals and the essentials and the basics, it becomes very individual. It becomes a tariqah. A tariqah literally means a pathway. And pathways to the Lord become very personal and very individual beyond the basics. So we all start out, it's like learning the ABCs. You know, you first start out with the alphabet, you learn the basic vocabulary, you learn the basic grammar, but once you gain basic competence, your writing style becomes very personal and very individual. And although there are many people who can read and write, but obviously there are writers that excel beyond everyone else. And it is their command of what they've learned that they personalized and stylized to their own. And so there are many systems of dhikr that we can pick from. And none of them are better than the other. I mean, they all are pathways to the divine. And I believe that they all have their own each of them is its own powerhouse. But as you develop you learn to personalize. Not first, you learn to prefer, so you develop a preference for a system over another, but then second, then you learn to actually synchronize between various systems you've developed, and you develop your own personal style, personal path, your own tariqah, if you will. Now, what is it that should happen when we do dhikr? Well, first you learn to develop a feeling for the divine. So when you first start out, what you're basically doing is that you're learning to become conscious of the reality that is in fact a truth, but that you are unaware of most of the time. So the presence of the divine with all of us is a constant reality. It is a certitude. It's a truth. If you don't believe in the presence of the divine everywhere and all the time, then you're not a believer. But awareness of that divinity is something else. Most of us are oblivious to the presence of the divine with us all the time and every place. Dhikr is the pathway where you're literally, your eyes open up to realities that you spend a lifetime oblivious to, and most of us are distracted from. It's like, as many people have compared it to sort of removing the fog from before your eyes, so that you can sense the reality within you intuitively, in a more powerful and more truthful fashion. The Prophet ﷺ says that whenever people gather together to do dhikr, they are blessed with angelic presence, and حفتهم الملائكة, that literally means the angels come and hover around them. And you can understand it in a sense that way. People who do dhikr, there are people who the goal is to remove the barriers between you and the angelic presence, so that you actually can concretely feel those angels that hover around you. That's a goal. People do this for hours and hours and days before they reach that stage. So if you're just from one session of dhikr, if you can't feel an angelic presence and you don't have you don't feel that you have gained insights in the divine, that's of course completely normal. It's like everything that is worth anything in life, the more you invest in it, the more it yields and the more it gives you. So I start with two important lessons for all dhikr. Great teachers have said that existence is as if summed up in an inhalation and an exhalation. The entire law of creation, the entire law of existence, the entire law of God in nature and within ourselves is an inhalation and an exhalation. Life and death itself and rebirth, the hereafter, is but an inhalation and an exhalation. Your very process of inhaling and exhaling mimics the very law of existence. And dhikr itself is but like an inhalation and exhalation. So, and that is why when there are people like myself who lived a lifetime it's been, uh, uh, doing it primarily by myself. In other words, I found that I am best able to inhale and exhale when I am alone. The Partly that's because of a weakness inside of me. It says the Prophet ﷺ said that Allah particularly blesses a human being who sits alone with God and their eyes tear up out of their reverence for the divine. There are people who, like myself, who are always afraid that when they do this inhalation and exhalation through dhikr with other human beings, that the disease of hypocrisy would seep into their heart. In other words, that you are no longer doing dhikr, even if just for a little bit, because of your relationship to Allah, but what seeps into your subconscious is your relationship with other human beings rather than your relationship with Allah. And that's why for all of these years, I have now there are some of us, like the Aqtab, not me, who have gained a self-mastery sufficiently that they can do dhikr with other people and not worry about the disease of hypocrisy, and it doesn't enter into their heart. I'm not like that. I worry about the disease of hypocrisy all the time. But at the same time, you have to balance that with the extent to which your insights and what you've gained and what Allah blessed you with ultimately goes to the grave with you. And that, as I've gotten older and every day that passes, you get closer to the end and you feel your time running up. So then you have to think about at what point do you say, I invested in myself enough, and priority has to be given to sharing rather than developing. Keep this in mind in your own journeys, because it's always a tough balance. It's always a challenge. When do you focus on developing yourself and purifying yourself, and at the same time, when it becomes a priority to go beyond yourself, because you're not the beginning and the end of creation. You yourself will be held accountable at the end in relation to how you discharge your covenant towards God vis-a-vis other human beings, and not just other human beings, but creation in total. So, Islam is one of those religions where if you killed an ant needlessly, if you killed a plant needlessly, if you will answer for all of that. And so, um, anyway, so as you do your dhikr, try to understand the logic of inhalation, exhalation as the secret of creation. Ibn Arabi, through his visualization of what he would call the divine inhalation, and he literally believed that the reason that the universe expands is because we are, everything in this unfolding universe is in the process of God, the divine exhalation, and he's written about that. Ibn Arabi, even through reflecting on this, wrote that the secret to time are but mathematical equations, and he believed that mathematics can explain the process of exhalation and inhalation in the universe, which is amazing insights. The other thing I want to tell you is that all dhikr unlocks an understandings of the very nature of divine love, which is divine mercy. The very act of creation itself is but an unfolding of the magnanimity of divine mercy. And divine mercy, so in the Prophet ﷺ, when he tells his companions, if you want divine merit to understand Ar-Rahma baynakum, if you want to understand mercy among you, tahabbu fillah, love one another in the sake of Allah. Consistently reflect on that, because dhikr, if it's done without pondering secrets of the universe, becomes like like a high that you can achieve, but it doesn't lead you anywhere. And you don't want to just achieve a high. You want your dhikr, your members, to take you into a deeper awareness of yourself, of your place in the universe, of the reason for your creation, of the meaning of the existence of others, and your relationship to others. And so, I've summed up something that you talk about for hours and hours, and you start out by tying it to the Fatiha, and tying it to Qul Huwallahu Ahad, and tying it to the dot under the ba, and the meaning of the alif, which you just spend hours and hours. So I'm just summing it up for you in a few minutes. Okay. So there will be, I forgot the other thing I was saying. There are parts that I recite for the blessings of praying for Allah's madad. Allah's madad is literally the existence of a direct line of support between us here this moment and Allah. And then there are parts that I will ask you to repeat with me. So it is not all listening and it's not all repeating. It's a mixture of two. There are, I mean, those, if maybe with time you will learn all the prayers and you can repeat them all with me, but for now we just will, so I will recite certain things and I will sort of sum up what they mean, and then I will ask you to repeat parts with me. Okay? I know that Sharif attended Dhikr before. Any of you attend any Dhikr sessions? Did you, where was it?
In Rhode Island, it was like a Mauritanian tariqa, like very loosely. It was like co-ed.
So we always start with, we collectively recite the Fatiha together. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. We'll all say together. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الرحمن الرحيم. مالك يوم الدين. إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين. اهدنا الصراط المستقيم. صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. آمين. قل هو الله أحد. قل هو الله أحد. الله الصمد. لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. قل هو الله أحد. الله الصمد. لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. قل هو الله أحد. الله الصمد. لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. قل أعوذ برب الناس. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. قل أعوذ برب الفلق. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. Do you know Surah Al-Kursi? Okay, those of you who know it, repeat Surah Al-Kursi with me. والله الذي لا إله إلا هو الحي القيوم لا تأخذه سنة ولا نوم له ما في السماوات وما في الأرض من ذا الذي يشفع عنده إلا بإذنه يعلم ما بين أيديهم وما خلفهم ولا يحيطون بشيء من علمه إلا بما شاء وسع كرسيه السماوات والأرض ولا يؤوده حفظهما وهو العلي العظيم. Surah Al-Kursi is the last part of Surah Al-Baqarah, and it's unusual because everything that recited is one ayah, so it's long. And if you get a chance to just read the last ayah of Surah Al-Baqarah, in all types of tariqas, they will repeat Surah Al-Kursi 21 times, 11 times, 3 times, depending on which tariqa you follow. I've sometimes done dhikr where I've done nothing but recite Surah Al-Kursi for hours. It is a surah with great power, but now the essence of dhikr is the tasbih and the tahmid. And that's subhanallah wa bihamdih, nastaghfiruka wa natubu ilayk. Is that too hard? Okay, so we'll all say it together for 21 times. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. 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 Okay, the next part will say Allahu Akbar kabira walhamdulillahi kathira. 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 Allahu Akbar kabira والحمد لله كثيرا. الله أكبر كبيرا 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 والحمد لله كثيرا. اللهم اعف عنا وارحمنا 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 اللهم اعف عنا وارحمنا. Okay, then Allahu innaka afu. This is a bit longer, so tell me if it's long. Allahumma innaka afu tuhibbul af fa'fu anna, which basically means, Allah, you are most forgiving, you love forgiveness, so forgive us. Now, this prayer, Allahumma innaka afu tuhibbul af fa'fu anna, is a prayer that the Prophet ﷺ told his companions to repeat, especially in Laylat al-Qadr, or whenever you believe Laylat al-Qadr is. We here will just repeat it, around 21 times. It's a little bit more than 21 times, but get into the habit of, if you say Allahumma innaka afu tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anni for singular, fa'fu anna for anna for plural, anni for singular, if you say that at least in a day 100 times, your entire soul will become immunized and blessed in ways that you'll experience firsthand. It transforms your inner being. Okay, will you be able to follow that? Okay. اللهم إنك عفو تحب العفو فاعف عنا 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 اللهم إنك عفو فاعف عنا تحب العفو فاعف عنا اللهم إنك عفو 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 تحب العفو فاعف عنا يا الله يا علي يا عظيم. اللهم أنت الحي القيوم اللهم أنت الحي القيوم. You are Allah, you are the upholder of the universe. Okay? So we just repeat that again. If you repeat Allahumma innaka al-hayyu qayyum رب السماوات والأرض, we won't say رب السماوات والأرض, we'll just say اللهم إنك الحي القيوم. If you say that at least 100 times a day, it will cleanse your inside and it will transform you into a new human being. You have to do it to experience it, but we will just repeat it as many times as we can. I mean, it will be around 21 times, but okay? اللهم أنت الحي القيوم 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 يا الله يا علي يا عظيم يا رب السماوات والأرض يا رحمن يا رحيم لبيك اللهم لبيك 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 وحدك لا شريك لك لبيك اللهم إن الحمد والشكر لك والنعمة لك والملك يا الله يا علي يا عظيم يا كريم يا رحمن يا رحيم يا رب العالمين. Okay, so the next one we will do, and again, we, if depending on how long you want the session to be, each one of these you can repeat it hundreds of times, and normally, the longer you repeat it, the longer you spend with it, it is as if calling on Allah to turn the divine gaze towards you. So when you say Ya Hayy Ya Qayyum, it's as if you are calling upon the divine. You are getting the attention of the divine towards you specifically in your specific time and place. And when you say Labbaik Allahumma Labbaik, it is saying, I am present and I want you. I am present and I want you. It is, don't create artificial distances between you and God. the more God is in your presence, the more all your questions that you find puzzling in life can be easily answered through a direct relationship with Allah. And that direct relationship comforts your heart with everything that ever puzzled you, from the smallest to the biggest. And it is just, it's as if within your heart you just get that sense of, I know. Okay, now I know. I know what all the things that have always puzzled me, confused me, that since I left the womb and I left my childhood and I started going further and further away from that womb. Now, Allah's embrace through dhikr resembles the process of the womb again. But it is, instead of its physiological womb, it's a spiritual womb. It's as if Allah takes you within the divine womb before the womb of the grave receives you. And you won't end up in the womb of the grave. So the wise human being is the one who marches towards the grave with a sense of sakina, the sense of peacefulness about the trajectory of their life from the womb to the womb. And then, of course, the hereafter is where you're treated as adults because you answer for full accountability. You know, in the irony is that it is on this earth where we can actually have an opportunity to throw all the responsibilities on Allah and to get a free ride, because in the hereafter there are no free rides. And that's the irony, is that we normally think of earth as nothing but, I mean, we don't think of it as at all as a free ride. But in fact, dhikr can give you that sense of peacefulness and serenity within you. So the next, we ask Allah for that consistent support so that we feel as if we are engulfed within Allah's womb on this earth. And we do that with two words. Well, three words. Madad, Ya Allah, Madad. Madad means, madad, it's literally like giving someone reinforcements. Now, if there are people like us who sit down and say, repeat it. In other tariqas, or they're not exclusive, the people will learn to go around in resembling the circular motion of creation with the power of madad. That's what gives you the power. Or in the Rifa'iyya tariqah, they will swing back and forth for hours, like exhalation and inhalation, or the movement of the pendulum of a clock for hours, with the power of madad. So we'll repeat madad. Madad, Ya Allah, madad. Okay. Madad, Ya Allah, madad. 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 مدد يا الله مدد 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 مدد يا صل وسلم وبارك على محمد يا رب العالمين. Okay, next we'll go to the dua of Ibn Arabi. Ibn Arabi used to repeat this dua reportedly several times a night. Some, depending on who you read, that on the last 10 days of Ramadan, apparently he would spend the entire day reciting this dua over and over. Of course, Ibn Arabi had a lot of murideen, a lot of students, and this is what they reported the dua, the famous Ibn Arabi dua. It is known as the dua of power. With this dua, just this dua, which, by the way, is largely taken from the Quran, you are, if you recite this dua and internalize this dua, even if you, honestly, even if you begin at the beginning with very little comprehension of it and just keep reciting it, its power will engulf you. You can reach enormous heights. You can reach enormous powers. and I mean here by power, power in rahmah, and compassion, and mercy, and love. The beautiful thing, anyone that claims that their power is to dazzle or that their power is to accumulate more power is a fraud. The nature of divine power is that it only makes you more humble, more modest, more beautiful, more kind, more compassionate. It doesn't make you more arrogant, more conceited. It doesn't make you more lofty. It doesn't make you more showy. And that's always one way which you can tell whether someone has truly attained more divine power or is a fraud. If they utilize their claim of divine power is for wealth or attention or any of the earthly stuff, then it's a fraud. The nature of divine power, like the Ibn Arabi dua, is that it is completely antithetical to the types of power that attract the demonic. In ideal situations, we would repeat this dua together, but it would be too difficult unless you're so I will recite it, and you will just follow along with the translation in English. Maybe if this becomes regular, then one day we actually get to the point where we can actually recite this dua together, which is something I have not done in 40 years.
You can do it.
Huh? Oh. No, it would be difficult. اللهم يا حي وقيوم بك تحصن فاحمني.
Future tense.
Like
The ever-optimist. Come over there, we can do it.
Yeah, I believe in this.
You'll be able to when I turn the page, so this way you can at least, because it's not always obvious when I left line 1 and line 2 and so on, but you will, lose yourself with it and with the meanings of the words. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم يا حي يا قيوم بك تحصنت. اللهم يا حي يا قيوم بك تحصنت فاحمني بحماية وكفاية ووقاية بحماية كفاية ووقاية وحقيقة برهان حرز أمان بسم الله. وادخلني يا أول يا آخر مكنون غيب سر دائرة كنز ما شاء الله لا قوة إلا بالله. واسبل علي يا حليم يا ستار كنف ستر حجاب صيانة نجاة واعتصموا بحبل الله. وابني يا محيط وابني يا محيط يا قادر علي سور أمان إحاطة مجد سرادق عز عظمة ذلك من آيات الله. وأعذني يا رقيب يا مجيب وأعذني يا رقيب يا مجيب واحرسني في نفسي وديني وأهلي وولدي وداري ومالي بكلاءة إغاثة وليس بضارهم شيء إلا بإذن الله. وقني يا مانع يا دافع يا رافع يا نافع وقني يا مانع يا رافع يا خافض يا دافع يا بارئ بأسمائك وآياتك وكلماتك شر الشيطان والسلطان، فإن ظالم أو جبار بغى علي أخذته غاشية من عذاب الله. ونجني يا مذل يا منتقم من عبيدك الظلمة الظالمين الباغين علي وأعوانهم، فإن هم لي منهم أحد بسوء خذله الله وختم على سمعه وقلبه وجعل على بصره غشاوة فمن يهديه من بعد الله. واكفني يا قابض واكفني يا قابض يا خافض يا رافع يا قهار خديعة مكرهم وارددهم عني مذمومين مدحورين بتخسير وتغيير وتدمير، فما كان له من فئة ينصرونه من دون الله. وأذقني يا سبوح يا قدوس لذة مناجاة اقبل ولا تخف إنك من الآمنين في كنف الله. وأذقهم يا ضار يا مميت نكال وبال زوال، فقطع دابر القوم الذين ظلموا والحمد لله. وأمني يا سلام يا مؤمن يا مهيمن صولة جولة دولة الأعداء بغاية بداية آية لهم البشرى في الحياة الدنيا وفي الآخرة لا تبديل لكلمات الله. وتوجني يا عظيم يا معز بتاج مهابة كبرياء بتاج مهابة كبرياء وجلال وجمال سلطان ملكوت عزة وعظمة، ولا يحزنك قولهم إن العزة لله. والبسني يا جليل يا كبير خلعة إجلال وإكمال وإقبال، فلما رأينه أكبرنه وقطعن أيديهن وقلن حاشا لله. والقي يا عزيز يا ودود علي محبة منك، فتنقاد وتخضع لي بها قلوب عبادك بالمحبة والمعزة والمودة من تعطيف وتلطيف وتأليف، يحبونهم كحب الله، والذين آمنوا أشد حبا لله. واظهر علي يا ظاهر يا باطن وآثار أسرار أنوار، يحبهم ويحبونه، أذلة على المؤمنين أعزة على الكافرين، يجاهدون في سبيل الله. ووجه اللهم يا صمد يا نور وجهي بصفاء جمال أنس إشراق، فإن حاجوك فقل أسلمت وجهي لله. واجعلني يا بديع السماوات والأرض يا ذا الجلال والإكرام بالفصاحة والبلاغة والبراعة، واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي، برأفة ورحمة ورقة، ثم تلين جلودهم وقلوبهم إلى ذكر الله. وقلدني يا شديد البطش يا جبار، وقلدني يا شديد البطش يا جبار، بسيف الهيبة والشدة والقوة والمنعة، من بأس جبروت عزة، وما النصر إلا من عند الله. ودم علي يا باسط يا فتاح بهجة مسرتي، رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري، بلطائف وعواطف وعوارف، ألم نشرح لك صدرك، وبشائر، ويومئذ يفرح المؤمنون بنصر الله. وانزل اللهم يا لطيف يا رؤوف بقلبي الإيمان والإطمئنان والسكينة ليكون من الذين آمنوا وتطمئن قلوبهم بذكر الله. وافرغ علي يا صبور يا شكور صبر الذين تضرعوا بثبات يقين وتمكين، كم فئة قليلة غلبت فئة كثيرة بإذن الله. واحفظني يا حفيظ يا وكيل، من بين يدي ومن خلفي وعن يميني وعن شمالي ومن فوقي ومن تحتي، بوجود شهود جنود له معقبات من بين يديه ومن خلفه يحفظونه من أمر الله. وثبت اللهم يا قائم يا دائم قدميك ما ثبت القائل وكيف أخاف ما أشركتم ولا تخافون أنكم أشركتم بالله وانصرني يا نعم المولى ويا نعم النصير وانصرني يا نعم المولى ويا نعم النصير على الأعداء نصر الذي قيل له وتتخذنا هزوا قال أعوذ بالله وأيدني يا طالب يا غالب بتأييد نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم المؤيد بتعزيز وتوقير إنا أرسلناك شاهدا ومبشرا ونذيرا لتؤمنوا بالله واكفني يا كافي يا شافي الأدواء والأنواء والأسواء بعوائد فوائد لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله وامن علي يا وهاب يا رزاق بحصول وصول قبول تدبير تيسير تسخير كلوا واشربوا من رزق الله والزمني يا واحد يا أحد والزمني يا واحد يا أحد كلمة التوحيد كما ألزمت حبيبك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم حيث قلت فاعلم أنه لا إله إلا الله وتولني يا ولي يا علي بالولاية والعناية والرعاية والسلامة بمزيد إيراد إسعاد إمداد ذلك من فضل الله واكرمني يا غني يا كريم بالسعادة والسيادة والكرامة والمغفرة كما أكرمت الذين يغضون أصواتهم عند رسول الله وتب علي يا تواب يا حليم وتب علي يا تواب يا حليم يا رحيم يا حكيم توبة نصوحا ليكون من الذين إذا فعلوا فاحشة أو ظلموا أنفسهم ذكروا الله فاستغفروا لذنوبهم ومن يغفر الذنوب إلا الله واختم لي يا رحمن يا رحيم بحسن خاتمة الناجين والراجين يا عبادي الذين أسرفوا على أنفسهم لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله واسكني يا سميع يا قريب جنة أعدت للمتقين دعواهم فيها سبحانك اللهم وتحيتهم فيها سلام وآخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله يا الله يا الله يا الله يا نافع يا نافع يا نافع يا الله يا رافع يا رافع يا رافع يا الله يا رحمن يا رحمن يا رحمن يا الله يا رحيم يا رحيم يا رحيم يا الله أسألك بحرمة هذه الأسماء والآيات والكلمات سلطانا نصيرا ورزقا كثيرا وقلبا قريرا وعلما غزيرا وعملا بريرا وقبرا منيرا وحسابا يسيرا وملكا في الفردوس كبيرا وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Okay, what time is it? It's 12:35. Okay, it's up to you guys. Shall we start? No?
Bathroom break.
Okay, let's take 5 minutes. Okay, as I make my next selection. Take it. I should tell you about this book. I'll mention it again later. If you guys, I don't know if this is still in print. You could tell that I've sort of used it. The nice thing about this book is that it's one of the few books that has the Arabic on one side and the meaning, and it's basically a tasbih book. So, and you could I mean, once you get the Arabic, and then you know what it means, and you could just take one of these prayers, like, and you could make a whole dhikr session out of it.
What's it called?
Just you want to pass it on.
Victory. It's called Boba Chacha. No, it must be new. Yeah, it has right here. What was it? Do you like it? It's in North Dakota. It's on Victory and Boba. That's it? Yeah,
He's so big.
Like more?
He's so big. You finish it.
Coffee or milk tea?
Yeah, it smokes.
No. No, I'm going to teach you several dua that I'm going to leave it in since I've already admitted to you that because my natural inclination is towards isolation. I am not the way I was trained to think that the biggest demon of all, the biggest shaitan that it was drilled into me to the point of obsession is your ego and arrogance. Most human beings, even those with average intelligence, they can justify pretty much anything if their ego is not in check. They can justify anything to themselves, and that's the way. So, after tonight, I'm going to leave it in your what's that expression, in your in your court, in your
Balls in your court.
in your court to if this is beneficial to you, to get me to have another session.
Yes.
And so, but just in case, I'm going to teach you dua that will, if we have other sessions, it will be very useful for our dhikr, and will be very useful for the rest of your life. Remember that what dhikr is as if God gave you the weapon, the language to access Allah at your fingertips, and it completely depends on you. Now, of course, there is a power in collective dua. The reason people do halaqat dhikr is that the energy that people bring together, the spirit that people bring together, when they get together and when their egos, you do not have someone in their midst where egos corrupt the process. It is an enormous power, but aside from that, you as a human being, as an individual, you have remarkable power to access all the pathways to the divine. And remember that the secret of creation is a word, and the secret between you and creation is a word. And the process of exhalation and inhalation, the laws of nature were created with words. And the secret of mathematics, the interchangeability between numbers and letters, tells you in itself a great deal. You know that letters, each letter stands for a number and some. So one of the most powerful is Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. Of course, this is from the Quran, but it's a dua in dhikr that, and for purposes today, Hasbunallah, that's a plural form, but if you're saying it singular, it would be Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakeel. Plural is Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. Now, what it means is literally Allah is enough for me, and Allah is the best of allies. And so much dhikr is just founded on that simple phrase. Muslims nowadays, in the modern age, often repeat Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakeel, especially when something bad happens to them. So, you know, I was, and it even like when people want to talk about how Muslims will often not do anything about injustice, they will say, oh, all they do is hasbana. Hasbana means Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakeel, that phrase. That's unfortunate that it's like that, like inshallah, that now it means like basically don't count on me, which you know means God willing. It's unfortunate that it has gotten the meaning of, or acquired the meaning of, basically powerlessness and lack of willpower. But Hasbi Allah wa ni'mal wakeel is a very powerful phrase, and if you should try to make it a part of your regular vocabulary between yourself and Allah. What should I choose? Another dua, أفوض أمري إلى الله. أفوض أمري إلى Allah, and the Quran says أفوض أمري إلى الله إن الله بصير بالعباد. The second part is not, the first part is أفوض أمري إلى الله means I turn over my affairs to Allah. I literally hand over my affairs to Allah. ما شاء الله لا قوة إلا بالله. That one we can repeat today. So let's do a few ما شاء الله لا قوة إلا بالله. Is that easy? Is that too hard? ما شاء الله لا قوة إلا بالله. Okay. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ما شاء الله لا قوة إلا بالله. 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 والحمد لله رب العالمين. You notice that you actually start feeling the power of the dua after you repeat it the first 50 times. That's normal. The longer you go with it, the times that if you read enough Sufi tracks, I leave my personal experiences outside of this, at least for tonight. The time that you achieve your greatest fath means an state of enlightenment, is the longer you go. So they always say that the first hour of the zikr session is just like warming up your car. Nothing happens pretty much the first hour. All states of enlightenment, especially the hour right before Fajr, is where you can expect the true flashes, literally. For some reason, I'm not sure why, but most shuyukh will not tell you this. You could be with them for a very long time and they won't tell you any of this material, not about the rule about the first hour, not about right before Fajr. I'm not quite sure why a lot of them believe that it's the best way to weed out the pretenders and the weak souls is not to tell you, so that all the fakes will leave. And then what they have left are the people who will experience things firsthand. And that's it. But, of course, we're in a different context, so they will also, many sheikhs will not even won't even do something like the Ibn Arabi dua unless you're with them for at least 6 months. That's also very common. Okay. What else can we do? The Qayyum dua. Yeah. One of the most powerful names of Allah, of course, all of Allah's names, each name, which is really a sifa, there are the Dhat al-Ilahiyya, the essence, the true essence of the divine, and then the Sifat al-Ilahiyya. The Sifat are what Allah has used to describe Allah's self. The Asma, they're not names that describe the essence of the divine. In other words, the names of Allah are unlike your name and my name. Our names are a part of the truth of who we are. So if someone denies you, so when they arrest you in political prison, the first thing they do is they take away your name and give you a number. You're no longer Muhammad or Khaled or whatever, you're just a number. Why did they do that? Because they know as human beings, your name is your dignity, it's your identity. Many people make the mistake of thinking that the names of Allah is Allah's identity. They're not. They are as Allah, the words that Allah used to describe Allah's self. One of the most powerful names in that sense of sifa, of a description, is Al-Latif, the magnanimous. Latif, lutf, is a mixture of kindness, but kindness was love. And like al-Wadud is friendliness, but al-Lutf, it's not just kindness, but it's a type of kindness with love and amicability. So one of the most powerful Asma'ullah, one of the most powerful names, in the sense that I explained the name, that we use in dhikr is Al-Latif, which of course is one of the names mentioned in the Quran as well as Fatullah. So let's, instead of doing Ya Latif al-Altaf, let's do Ya Rahman, Ya Tawwab, Ya Latif. Of course, I mean, I with all these interruptions, I know I'm breaking the flow, but we all have to, this is our first, so there has to be a process of curve of education. I mean, no one is born knowing this stuff, right? Ya Tawwab, Ya Rahim, Ya Latif. Okay? Ya Tawwab, Ya Rahim, Ya Latif. 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 يا لطيف الطف بنا يا الله يا علي يا عظيم يا رب العالمين يا تواب يا رحيم الطف بنا يا Allah is the total dua which the forgiver, Allah the most forgiving, Ya Rahim, O merciful, Ya Latif. I don't even know how to translate Latif as one word. Ultuf bina, extend your literally your kindness and your magnanimity. Ya Rabbal Alameen. Okay, let's um, oh. Okay, there is dua that usually will be in the middle of his dhikr session, but I just remember that now. Which was among the dua the Prophet ﷺ would repeat consistently, and it is a very important dua for all Muslims to know. And let's see if I hope it's not too hard to repeat. But it's Bismillah alladhi la yadurru ma ismihi shay'a. In the name of Allah, who, with the mention of His name, nothing can harm you. Now, it doesn't mean that it immunizes you from harm, but it is a reminder that whatever would harm you doesn't harm you out of God's kingdom. So it's not external to God's kingdom. It is sort of accepting the idea that if harm comes to you, if God would have wanted, God could have prevented it. But it puts you at peace with the unfolding of events in life, because it's either Allah's will or Allah's permission. And in that is a lot of peace. Now, it is used by many Sufis as a way of seeking Allah's protection from any, the possibility of harm. And that is why in a lot of dhikr we repeat it often. Bismillah alladhi la yadurru ma'a ismihi shay'an. So is that too long? Shall I break it down? Bismillah. So let's see if we can. Bismillah alladhi la yadurru ma'a ismihi shay'an. 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 Bismillah alladhi la yadurru ma'a ismihi shay'an wa huwa as-sami'ul 'alim ya rabbal 'alamin. One of the cornerstone of all dhikr it Allahumma ya nur inam alay binurin. Allahumma ya nur inam alay binur. Let's make it easy. Allahumma ya nur inam alay binur. Allah, O light. Allah is the essence of light. The greatest blessing, the greatest gift that Allah can give a human being is the gift of light. Light that pervades you, surrounds you. Now, if you're able, if you get to that stage, you can actually see if a light surrounds a human being, or what we say is darkness, but it's really bluishness. It's sort of a dark bluish hue, which is basically the absence of light around a human being. It's, as Allah says, it is not your eyesight that goes blind, but your heart. you see with the light of Allah. And that's why, you know, all the books in the world can give you a great deal of data and they can give you a great deal of intelligence. But wisdom can only be acquired through light. And it doesn't come from bookish knowledge. It comes from a deep perceptiveness within you. So, is that too hard? Ya Noor? انعم علينا بنور. Okay. Let's Allahumma ya Noor انعم علينا بنور. So just repeat and then you'll get used to it. Allahumma ya Noor انعم علينا بنور. Allahumma ya Noor انعم علينا بنور. Allahumma ya Noor انعم علينا بنور. اللهم يا نور 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 انعم علينا بنور. وأنر بصيرتنا يا علي عظيم. واجعل الله نورا بين أيدينا ومن خلفنا وأمامنا ومن تحتنا ومن فوقنا يا رب العالمين. يا إلهي يا علي يا عظيم. Okay. Now let's take it a step further. Allah, the knowledge, the superfunction, the belief in Allah is the first step. Often mystics compare Allah to like a secret, because in part Allah Himself, or Allah's self, because Allah is not gender, describes Allah's self as a secret that was hidden and wanted to be known, so created creation so that secret can be known. So many of the Sufis refer to Allah as a sir. There is an intimate relation. Sir means secret. There is an intimate relationship between a secret and a Quds al-Aqdas. Quds al-Aqdas, it's the same, which is also shared with Aramaic. Comes from, went through to Arabic from Aramaic. And because the language of Jesus was as Aramaic, you'll find that same expression, Quds al-Aqdas, which translated from Aramaic to the holy, most holy of holies. Well, it's as Islamic as you get. And in Dhikr, we often call upon Quds al-Aqdas. The most holy of holies is not Jesus Christ, the most holiest of all holies is Allah. So one of the most precious and powerful dua you can do in Dhikr, Ya Quds al-Aqdas, to call upon Quds al-Aqdas, the most holy of holies, the most powerful, the most powerful form of knowledge in the universe. And if you use that phrase in your dhikr, and you call upon Quds al-Aqdas, Ya Allah, Ya Quds al-Aqdas, it's a part of a long time, but just Ya Allah, Ya Quds al-Aqdas, it will unlock so much to you. The more you repeat it, the more it will yield to you. Do you want to repeat that or? Okay.
Yes.
Allah, Allah ya Quds al-Aqdas, say it with me. Allah ya Quds al-Aqdas, 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 الله يا قدس الأقداس إنعم علينا بسر من عندك يا الله يا علي يا عظيم يا كريم يا رحمن يا رب العالمين يا مكنون السر يا رب العالمين. Okay. one of the dua that in Dhikr, the Prophet ﷺ used to repeat this quite often, and if the Prophet himself would affirm this consistently as part of his dhikr, so you would say, Ana ala ahdika wa wa'dik. Allah, I affirm my covenant to you and my promise of allegiance to you. And this affirmation, which by the way, I forgot, we usually say the ahd and wa'd before we do the Quds prayer, but it doesn't matter for our purposes. So, Allahumma ana ala ahdika wa wa'dik. Is that too hard? To affirm that you are, remember that you take one step towards Allah, Allah takes 10. So you are affirming to Allah, you are with, it's as if you are beyond salah, you're saying to Allah, I am with you, so be with me. That's it. That's the implication of that thing. Allahumma ana ala ahdika wa wa'dik. 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 Allahumma ala ahdika wa wa'dik. Allahumma ana 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 ala ahdika wa wa'dik. Farhamna arhamar rahimin. Ya Rabb al-Alamin. By the way, the entire dua for this, Allahumma anta rabbi la ilaha illa ant ana ala ahdika wa wa'dik farhamna ya Rabb al-Alamin. Just so you know that it's a part of a much longer dua. Let's take a 5-minute break. I'm not wearing my glasses, so I actually can't see your faces. So I have no idea if you look tired, or if you look happy, or if you look miserable. You're just all just a blur. So, let me know if we need to stop. And you still a blur, so even this close you can't see. So, you know, I didn't even think, I thought this would be too hard, so I'm actually pleasantly surprised, because I was having an argument with Grace earlier today about how much Arabic you can handle. She told me you can't handle any Arabic.
كثير I was not saying that. كثير عربي.
Well, she didn't exactly say that.
Yeah.
I said if you were going to have the Arabic, then we should know what it means.
Yeah, she wanted me to provide
Yeah.
translations.
Otherwise, it's just nice sounds, but we have no clue what it means.
I'm going to stick with my music.
I'm opposite and disgusting.
I know.
I'm like the Wahhabis that's like, you don't need to understand anything.
I know.
Say it and be quiet.
Your heart will know what it means.
Alhamdulillah, just enjoy it.
Worth the design.
Shall we stop?
I mean, I have to, but
Okay, let's stop.
it's kind of late.
Are you guys tired?
I
You guys are gonna go?
Okay, so let's stop then.
Inshallah, for this semester.
Now that I actually know you can handle this, we'll take it a notch higher next time.
Do you think, like, can you, like,